sort of people are they, Doctor?
Well, I'm not sure, my child. You'll notice they're wearing Grecian costumes.
You don't seem to have noticed us.
That's hardly surprising in the circumstances.
Okay.
Welcome, Greeks, Trojans, and Time Lords masquerading as deities. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Doc. To this, the 252nd episode of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 11th of April, 2018, and featuring The Mythmakers, written by Donald Cotton, and starring William Hartnell as the Doctor, Maureen O'Brien as Vicki, Peter Purvis as Stephen Taylor, and introducing Adrian Hill as Katerina. I'm your host for the evening, Randy Ronson McCulloch, and with me is our technical director, Mad Matt Winchell.
I'm down to my last sip of Pepsi.
And also on the panel tonight is Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Yo, yo.
Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, could not be in attendance tonight due to a school-related thing. And Thomas had issues dealing with the episode. Telesnaps. I've constantly made my own issues with them pretty clear.
Wait, he seriously couldn't get through it because it was two telesnaps then?
He had trouble
More or less.
focusing, he said. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This was actually one of the easier telesnaps I had.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, I actually kind of enjoyed this one.
Well, my secret is I go into an MMO or a video game or something,
Just
and I
listen to
let it play while I zone out and do something like fishing or, something generically mind-bendingly stupid that I don't need to focus on. So I'm listening, occasionally glancing up, and then just doing what I need to on there. It keeps me distracted enough. I cannot write, by the way, when trying to do this, because if I have to do something that involves words, I will completely lose focus. I've learned this.
Yeah. I do the exact opposite. I actually just watch it.
I can't, because my brain will actually start shutting down. My brain will be going, this is boring. I'm bored now. This is... I'll wake up, the episode's done. All right. So on tonight's show, we've got news, and not a lot of news. In fact, there's very little to report, but we're gonna post what we have. Geek Talk, there's nothing new in Geek Talk, but I want to talk about at least one old thing I saw last week. Basically, there's no rant of the week. If Thomas wants to try to do a review of Shame next week, he can, but other than that, nothing this week. No YouTube comments. Then, of course, the episode summary. Our final thoughts, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get this party started.
Yeah.
With birthdays, of which there's one.
One.
When's the last time I've had only one birthday?
Well, you've only had one birthday. I mean, how many birthdays do you need, mister?
All of them. I have all the birthdays.
How much have all the birthdays?
Well, as long as they
Oh,
have
your
ice
birthday
cream,
all belong to us.
birthday cake.
I turn 7 billion additional years old every year. Because all your birthdays belong to me. Anyway.
Hello, Calendar Man.
Anyway, our birthday was on the 6th of April, which was, right after our last one? Friday. And that is the birthday of Mark Strickson, better known as Vizsla Turlow, from 1983, 1984, Fifth Doctor era, turned 59.
Funny how his last
So-
name became the name they shouted out for whenever they were trying to get his attention.
Well, I know several people like that. Like anybody whose first name is Jason, I always refer to by their last name because there's way too many Jasons in the world. And look at his first name, Mark. You go, "Hey, Mark," and 6 people go, "Yo," you know. It's gonna be-
Voorhees, searching for Voorhees.
Yeah, it's that kind of basic issue. My gaming group in the 90s, we had 2 Jasons, so they became Becker and Casper, respectively.
Oh,
And they still refer to them as such to this day. Even though one of them no longer even games with us. So. All right. Anyway, that's our only birthday. Happy birthday, Mark. And we move on to episode news because nobody died in the Doctor Who
who
cast
alumni?
and crew
Yay.
this week.
Hooray.
Yay, no death.
All right. Okay,
Or is
so
there?
veteran Doctor Who director Rachel Talalay was
Talalay.
talking to her fans on Twitter recently, and one of them asked the question, "Will you be back to direct any episodes of Doctor Who?" To which Talalay replied, "I'm not going back on Who this series, 11 she meant, although invited, but timing was not good for personal reasons. Perhaps season 12 or series 12, Time and Space will tell." This is good news because it does show that Chibnall isn't against working with alumni of the show after coming in and pretty much firing and or making them redundant and replacing the whole production team.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that because I was, Chibnall's, it seemed to be he was making a point of replacing everybody on staff with his own personal crew. I was wondering if he was trying to distance himself from the Davies-Moffat era and not having any repeated, but if he's inviting Talalay back, then at least he's looking at the best of them and going,
Yes.
yeah, you can come back.
Yes, you did some really good work despite some of the horrible things going on. Yes, we allow you to come back.
After new news on what was going on with Doctor Who filming in the last weeks, and presumably taking the Easter holiday off, word has finally gotten out that the filming team was spotted back in Cardiff this week. Filming at the Cardiff Bay Barrage. Both Jodie Whittaker and Bradley Walsh were spotted on location there, and the quick tweeter grabbed a pic. More filming news as events warrant.
All right. Yeah, just there's a quick picture there of them walking down the barrage, but that's basically it. It's almost a non-news article, but it's considering how light our news is, it was good enough for tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So moving on to cast and crew news. Current cast and crew news. There is nothing about the current cast and crew news that is new. But we have alumni cast and crew news. Russell T. Davies. What was the most significant moment in Doctor Who 2005? Original New Who showrunner Russell T. Davies gave an interview to Doctor Who magazine recently, where he talked about Series 1 of the show and the risk they had reviving the series. He, from the producer point of view, talked about what was the most significant moment in the show. Was it the premiere of the show, which garnered 10.8 million viewers? No. Actually, the most significant moment was the Sunday morning after The Unquiet Dead, the 3rd episode in the run, penned by Mark Gatiss. Numbers had fallen for the 2nd episode, The End of the World, as had been expected. But would that go up or down for episode 3, giving a very real indicator as to how the show was going down? Had we pushed people away? On Saturday 9th, April 2005, I watched The Unquiet Dead's ghosts and zombies rising from the grave, and it felt a bit symbolic. I thought, this is it. Life or death. On this night, the Doctor stands, falls. And on Sunday morning, 10th April, the figures came in. 8.8 million. We went up. Up! Davey states that was the moment he knew they had a success on their hands. The rest, of course, is history.
And of course, now we know about the Doctor. Who he is where he stands, and where he stands is where he falls. But no, that was actually the point that I first watched the series, and it felt like Doctor Who. By the way, the Unquiet Dead. Because you watch Rose, and you're like, this is so-so. You watch The End of the World, and you're like, this is good, but it's more Douglas Adams good, not Doctor Who good. And then you get to The Unquiet Dead, and you're like, okay, yeah, now it's getting that Doctor Who feel.
It's Cardiff. Right.
All right. So the next piece of news we have is from our contest and auctions area, and an auction in particular. Next month, a very lucky find is going to hit the auction block. A man recently had purchased William Hartnell's old residence in London and was working to refurbish it when he found a script in the residence. The script was to the original pilot episode, An Unearthly Child, complete with Hartnell's own notes developing the character of the Doctor, written by hand in blue pencil. He took it to the Antiques Roadshow last Christmas, and I tried to look for that clip and couldn't find it. But they deemed it as valid, and he is selling it next month at Aston's Auctioneers and Valuers. It's expected to fetch between £5,000 and £7,000. So if you want to put your money in, you know where to go. Right.
Okay.
That takes us to the last bit of news we have, which is the Big Finish news.
Okay, Big Finish. Okay, so we've got 8th Doctor, Ravenous 1, out as of yesterday. This is the 8th Doctor in the first installment of Ravenous, continuing off of where Doom Patrol left off. The Doctor and Liv Chanka look for their friend and possible traitor, Helen Sinclair. Ravenous consists of 4 parts, 2 separate stories, and a two-parter. Their Finest Hour by John Dorney. How to Make a Killing in Time Travel, also by John Dorney. World of Damnation by Matt Fitton. Sweet Salvation, also by Matt Fitton. You can order Ravenous box sets 1 to 4 individually from the Big Finish website for £23 CD, £20 download, or order all 4 box sets in a bundle for £90 CD, £80 download. 6 new short trips available to the was it the MR subscribers?
Main range
subscribers. And exclusive to Doctor Who Main Range subscribers, 6 all new short trips are made available to download from their website. Subscribers can now download An Ocean of Sawdust by Paul Starkey from the 8th Doctor era, Loud and Proud by Andrew Allen from the 6th Doctor and Mel era, Still Life by Max Curtis from the 3rd Doctor era, Taken for Granted by Ian Hidwell, or Hidewell?
Hidewell, there's an E there.
Yeah, Hidewell from the 3rd Doctor era, The Smallest Battle by Stephen Osborne from the 4th Doctor era.
Again,
upcoming releases include.
Well, hold on.
Huh?
Just to remind them, that is only available to subscribers. It's not available to purchase at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alright, so upcoming releases: The 8th Doctor, The Time War 2. With Ravenous out the door, Big Finish is moving to the second set of McGann's other ongoing series, The Time War. Jacqueline Pierce returns as Cardinal Alustra, a character from both McGann and Hurt's Time War audios. Rocky Thakar returns as Companion Bliss, and Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks, of course. Also returning our 3rd Doctor monster, the Ogrons. 4 new adventures are scheduled for the Time War 2 and are as follows: Lords of Terror by Jonathan Morris, Planet of the Ogrons by Guy Adams, In the Garden of Death by by Guy Adams. Jonah by Timothy X. Attack.
Attic. I don't know.
Attic. Okay. The Time War 2 will be released in July. The Time War 3 will be released the same time in 2019, and the Time War 4 in 2020.
I suspect he's a Welsh or something, because that's not an English pronounced word correctly.
Okay.
And most people that I see with X as a middle name, it usually means they have no middle name. Unless it's Xavier, which is also possible.
Okay. Next up, Jenny the Doctor's Daughter. I think we mentioned a few weeks back that Jenny is getting her own release. Well, now we have details. In Jenny the Doctor's Daughter, Jenny will be joined by companion Noah on a series of 4 adventures. Stolen Goods by Matt Fitton, Prisoner of the Ood by John Dorney, Neon Rain by Christian Brassington, Zero Space by Adrian Poyton. Jenny the Doctor's Daughter can be pre-ordered from the Big Finish website for £23 CD, £20 download. It is planned to be released in June, when the price will be up to £35 CD and $30 download.
Ood.
Yep. The Ood are featured in that second one. First one is pretty much the introduction to Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And I put companion in quotes there because it's technically companion usually refers to only a traveler with the Doctor. So.
Well, she's technically the Doctor of her own story, so.
I know, but I just had to put that because that means it's not official. Don't put it on the lists.
Well, it's an audio-only venture anyway, so that's already gray area at best.
Yeah, I know, but people tend to use like the 8th Doctor's companions as they're on the list. So.
Only if they've ever been officially mentioned in official videos. So otherwise, stop it. Speaking of which, where's Frobisher?
Frobisher! Wait, was Frobisher mentioned?
He has not been mentioned as far as I'm aware, sadly.
Not on no official publications. He was what was he originally? A comic book?
He's originally a comic book character that became an audio character.
Yeah, because I heard one of the audios he was in. It was one of their short trips, and I think he's done a couple others since then. But he's never been a serious character.
Well, yeah, he's a shape-changing penguin, isn't
He's
he?
a shape changer who tends to take the shape of a penguin.
He tends to take the shape of the penguin because it's considered a safe enough form inside of the TARDIS. And yeah, when the need arises, he can shapeshift into other things.
Mind you, Frobisher is a lot tolerable than some of the novel companions, like the one that turns into a freaking TARDIS.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Shape changer, sure. TARDIS changing humanoid, what? No.
And I mean, shape changers can be done on TV. I mean, DS9 did it for 7 years.
Well, we've actually technically had a shape changer a couple seasons ago. So yes, it's totally doable in franchise.
A couple seasons ago.
The mutants.
Oh yeah, for 1 episode. No, I meant as an ongoing companion.
Yeah, as an ongoing companion, no, but as a actual character that can show up, yes.
I had to think about it for a moment, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I liked that episode."
Yes, yes. She was really good.
Yeah.
Liked her. More of that, please.
All right, so that is it for the news, and with basically less than 15 minutes for the news. Hey.
Hooray!
Might be a short night tonight with there only being 4 of us, and not a lot of news, but Geek Talk. So I haven't seen any of the new stuff. I want to see the new stuff. I want to see Ready Player One. I want to see Pacific Rim 2. Just haven't had the time or the money to go see any of it right now.
I was hoping to see some of those this weekend, but yeah, the plans got foiled because my ride suddenly realized, sorry, we had extended late Easter.
So the one thing I do have access to right now is Amazon Prime. So I finally managed to catch Valerian and the City of a Thousand Worlds from last year, and it's not as bad as everyone was yelling. Because I remember when it came out, I was like, don't go see it. This is terrible. You don't want to. It's absolutely horrible. It's not. Mind you, it's not good by any sense of the imagination, but it's not terrible. It's meh, because it's a mix of good and bad. Visually, it is probably the most stunning movie I've seen since James Cameron's Avatar. Talking
or since
purely...
Warcraft?
No, Warcraft wasn't as impressive as this. From a technical standpoint, Warcraft was awesome because of the amount of the CGI that went into making it look as close as it did to the actual,
games and not being clunky and ugly, yeah.
Yeah. But that's impressive from a technical standpoint. From a pure visual aesthetic, this movie is gorgeous. And like I said, I could only compare it to James Cameron's Avatar, which was gorgeous, beautifully. Just their plot was basically the Smurfs.
Yeah. And the Smurfs did it better.
Yes. The plot was gorgeous. The writing was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Where Valerian failed was its choice of casting and direction of its two lead characters. I've read the Valerian comics to an extent, not all of them, but a few of them. Basically what I could find online. And I've seen the majority of the animated Valerian cartoon, which came out about 2003, 2004, called Time Jam. So I know the characterization of those characters. And the role of Valerian needs to be a reasonably attractive male kind of jockish lead, because that's who he is. He's kind of the space ace. For those of you that remember old 80s video games. He's the strong leading male character who basically follows orders and is a bit too close-minded about that. And Laureline, his partner, is basically his counterpoint to that. And while that is written into the script, they don't execute it that well. First of all, the guy that they got to play Valerian is kind of nerdy and not really leading man material. He had these huge bags under his eyes that made me wonder if he had gotten sleep for like a year.
He looks like an emo.
Yeah, not really what I would be choosing for that character. And while the character they got for Laureline was visually looked okay, she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag.
And just by looking at most of her images, she looks extremely bored.
That's kind of how her entire delivery was. It's like she was phoning it in while being present. There was one particular scene where she's using this device which replicates matter, and it's dropping a whole bunch of coins in her. And the line that she says is, "Wow, I've got to take you with me when I'm going shopping," which is a humorous line. And she delivers it like Raven from the Teen Titans. That absolute flat, dead delivery.
That flat echo, flat to the point of echoing deadpan, yeah.
And it wasn't really deadpan, it was just dead.
It's dead and it's in the pan.
It's like if
gone.
you programmed an android to say it, it would have come out like that.
Actually, an android might have better inflection.
Possibly, but it was just kind of like, wow, you're really not enthused about doing this work, are you? Why did you take it? Probably because you needed the money. But yeah, that's the drawback of it. But visually, it's beautiful. And unfortunately, it is a bit of a spoiled opportunity. Valerian was pretty much the inspiration for a lot of modern science fiction, including some of the things we've seen in both Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Wars, in particular, stole a lot of things from Valerian.
Intentionally or not.
Oh, I'm pretty sure the Leia bikini was intentional.
Possibly.
because the thing looks damn exactly like it. Anyway, so it's really worth seeing if you like decent sci-fi. If you're starved for sci-fi and you've got Prime, which gives it to you for free, I'd go ahead and watch it. You're certainly not wasting any money at that point, and it's not bad enough that you're going to demand your 2 hours back. And at least it's nice to look at. But I would have been a little disappointed had I gone to pay theater prices for this. I'm hopefully we'll get to reviewing some of the Pacific Rim 2 and Ready Player One at some point here, but
A lot of us seem to have a lot of scheduling issues at the moment, which is preventing that from happening.
yes, indeed.
Actually, I should
Also-
talk to my old man because he actually liked Pacific Rim 1, so I might be able to talk him into seeing 2.
From what I hear, if you liked Pacific Rim 1, you're going to like Pacific Rim 2.
That's pretty much the gist. I've been getting you'll like some of the new changes, but you'll not be 100% happy either. But it'll be a step up.
Apparently, Ready Player One is simply great by just watching the amount of references in the movie.
Which is what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's basically one ginormous reference drop. So it's I got sat down on Monday when I was at game, and it's just like, yeah, you can't come out of that movie watching it the first time and list every reference in the movie. There are just far too many of them. You will miss some.
I type in Ready Player One and I get anything but actual images from Ready Player One for like half a page.
But that's all I can tell you about that. Don't think I've been watching anything in particular on TV. I've been playing some Rift, as I think I mentioned last week, and recently went back to Conan Exiles because it's now less than a month from launch, and I wanted to see what was up on their test live.
I just today started streaming Far Cry. I believe there's sci-fi stuff, but you don't find out until later in the game. So, other than the fact that I've started playing it, zip lips, I'll wait until later.
Yeah, I kind of want to tune in for that one.
That'll be Wednesday afternoons.
Wednesday afternoon. Damn it, I'm going to miss it then. Because I work almost
There's
every
always the
Wednesday.
VODs. They'll come out every Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, anyone else see anything else new on TV or at the theater or read anything good?
I just started post for Knight Riders, so I'll be watching that movie soon. It's a movie I've been wanting to get to for like three or 4 months, and it's finally gotten to the point where I have enough schedule openings.
What movie?
Knight Riders. It's a George A. Romero movie, and it's not a zombie flick.
Okay.
When you have a medieval knight on a motorcycle, you officially have my attention.
Sounds weird.
It is.
It sounds weird, but it also sounds like it's going to be amazing. Can't wait to watch it.
Okay. So, like I said, no YouTube comments, no
Just
review
looking
of
out of the
shame. I have no real big rant this week.
No.
Nothing's really pissing me off.
So I
let's
guess we're
get
moving
to the
on to the
summary.
review. Yeah, we gotta do the summary here. Who did the summary last week?
I believe that was me.
I was thinking it might have been you. I wasn't sure. All right. So does it come down to me then, or is anyone else? Or do you want
I
Rand?
think so, cause I mean, I could do this one in really short.
I might be cutting some fat too, so.
You could summarize this episode in one sentence.
Well, here I've got the stopwatch already ready, so gonna start in 3, 2, 1. And so, some quick summary: the Doctor and companions show up in Greek and Roman times, and matter of fact, see one of each side dueling each other out in the middle of a field. The Doctor, in his infinite wisdom, decides that they're talking too much to actually be seriously fighting each other, and decides to go out there and talk to them. Convincing them that he is out of the clear blue Zeus, because that's what one of them assumed. He decides to go with it for far too long, getting himself and others into trouble. While he is gone, the TARDIS is stolen by the people from Troy, and it still has Vicki inside. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Stephen have to try and find a way to get back to Troy and get the TARDIS back and save Vicki. Stephen decides to fake being a Troy soldier and gets into fakes being a not Troy soldier, one of Odysseus's men, and gets in a fight with a Troy soldier and gets captured. He's dragged off to Troy, and upon finally reaching there, finds that Vicki has been actually cozying up with the local royalty, despite the dislike of that from the sister of the royal trio. Having convinced them that she is a time traveler due to some major oddities about herself. And also, the Doctor and Stefan getting Odysseus to believe that they are not of this area because of some of their oddities in their clothing and their mannerisms and so on. Although eventually getting the confession out of the Doctor that he's not a god. The Doctor finally decides to concoct the plans to make the Trojan horse, which they then use to get into Troy. The Doctor manages to sneak in with Odysseus and men, even though he would prefer not to actually go in there at all, and starts chickening out halfway through. Long other things all at once. Vicki manages to get Stephen out of the dungeons in time. He hides for a while. Vicki manages to bring a servant girl with her to help find Stephen, who then brings him back to the TARDIS. Vicki talks to the Doctor alone to tell him that she wants to stay because she's fallen in love with the prince. She sent him off early before the invasion so that he'd be outside the city walls when the place got stomped. Odysseus' men open up the gates and allow the invading forces to just take over Troy. And the Doctor finally takes off with Stephen and the handmaiden, and Vicki is left with her new boyfriends to try and sort things out as they find his cousin, who was too late to help in the battle, and decide to go with them to possibly see where things will lie in for them in the future. And that's about it.
So about a little over 3 minutes.
3 minutes, 9 seconds.
Because really, you could have summed it up in one sentence, and that was, the Doctor and friends get caught up in the events of the end of the Trojan War.
Technically. But that's not enough detail. There's little switches.
I would have said, have you read the Iliad? Good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they were pretty liberally borrowing from the Iliad there. If you know your Iliad, it's like, oh, yeah, that's why they keep laughing at whatever she says, because she's been cursed by the gods for no one to see the future, but no one ever believes what she says.
Yeah. I never understood that, because it's like, no one believes what she says, but then after everything she says always comes true, wouldn't they, or do they just have short-term amnesia?
It's magic.
Also, I think it was only a short-term curse. Like some of their previous stuff, yes, they believed, and up until recently,
they did skip some of the nasty parts of it, because I think she wound up being raped in front of the statue of Athena,
something like that. Yeah,
in the Iliad, and you don't get to see that here.
No, that's details you don't need on Doctor Who.
Right.
That would be improper.
Yeah, it was like, yes, a lot of these people had really crappy endings.
The king of Troy got pretty much butchered.
Yep.
And yeah, the one prince is pretty much the only person that did get away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they knew the reasons why. He just happened to be outside the city or close to it and managed to escape in time.
The battle with Achilles was interesting, though.
Yeah, I wish there was actual visuals for that, sadly.
Yeah. All right. So, what we liked about this episode, and Aaron, you are up first.
Let me see here. There was quite a few things that I enjoyed. It was, like I said, it was one of the more interesting telesnaps we've seen. Let me see here. Overall, I actually did. I think overall I enjoyed the setting of the Trojan War. I think they pulled it off, not like completely, convincing, but for the 60s, I thought it was pretty enjoyable to watch, and it's simplified things down to, the Greeks versus the Trojans. It had characters in it that most people know who they are. Everyone knows who Odysseus is.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everybody has read the Odyssey. I've read
Or
it,
heard or seen several variations thereof.
Yeah, I had to read it like 4 or 5 times from middle school through high school. Let me see here, and some of them, gosh, yeah, I like the setting. I thought like the little model cities, what little we got to see of Troy and the horse and everything were halfway decent.
Yeah, I would have loved to see this episode intact, so you'd actually get to see everything instead of just these little pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that it didn't have too much sci-fi in it. It was really just, your usual.
It was a pure historical, other than the presence of the Doctor and the TARDIS.
And it was kind of nice and refreshing to have that immersion into reality, or at least some form of reality. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, Matt.
What I liked overall, I liked the kind of I usually most people see Odysseus as nothing but a good guy, but I liked the fact that they played around with him and some of the other characters to make them not as likable as they usually are. Like, kind of reveal that there's possibly more layers there than most people would normally think about, and that's a possibility with how history actually runs. Like, Odysseus in this one in particular, he came off as really slimy.
The Iliad and the Odyssey were written by Greeks, so
Mm-hmm.
it's seen through the Greek filter.
Yeah, and in this one, Odysseus is actually kind of a slimy bastard in some parts.
Yep.
All right, Tim, how about you?
Well, Matt sort of took mine, but just the idea that it takes characters and plays with your expectations of them. I did how it played with the idea that the Doctor and Stephen and Vicky's knowledge of history or just legends of stories was taken into account of the idea that what about the Trojan horse? That was just a story that Homer made up. It's like no. Apparently, because of the time travel thing, that really happened, and we're making it happen. So, does that technically count as a bootstrap paradox?
Yes, it does.
Technically, yes.
If the Doctor used the Trojan horse because
he needed to get inside his TARDIS.
Well, because all the books said that was how they got in. It's a freaking Moffat loop.
Earliest form.
They're not called bootstrap paradoxes anymore. They're called Moffat loops.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the trope name for them now.
Earliest form of Moffat loop that we know of. Probably not the only one, though.
At least, I think it is the earliest in the show.
Mm-hmm. One of the earliest we've noticed, at least.
I would have to look at all the other historicals. I mean,
And see where they
the
played with things, yeah.
Yeah, the Crusaders, the Marco Polo, etc., and see if there are any others in there. But you notice that most of the historicals are the ones that are absent.
Funny enough, and those are also the ones that they put the most production time into.
Yeah, I know,
Apparently.
which is the crying shame. I mean, look at it. Unearthly Child, not a historical.
Mm-hmm.
Tribe of Gum, same thing. The Daleks, not a historical. Edge of Destruction, not a historical, still there. Marco Polo,
Gone.
historical, gone. Keys of Marinus, that was pure science fiction, still there. Aztecs, historical, that one's still intact.
That's one of the few, yeah.
Censorites, science fiction, I think that one's gone.
Censorites?
I don't remember seeing it. If it is intact. Let's see. It looks like it's intact.
Oh, I've seen that one intact. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, that one's intact. Okay. I actually have to watch that one because I don't remember seeing it. Reign of Terror, gone.
Reign of Terror, mostly gone, yeah, if not completely.
Yep. Galaxy Force, science fiction. Mission to the Unknown, science fiction. Mythmakers, historical, gone. Daleks Master Plan, science fiction. Gone, but yeah. The Massacre, historical, gone. The Ark, science fiction, intact. Celestial Toymaker, science fiction, mostly intact. Or at least partially intact. Yep.
Partially. It's not, a lot of it's still missing.
The Gunfighters, historical, intact, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
The Savages, which I think is science fiction, gone. The War Machines, present day. That's, I think, the first present day one since An Unearthly Child.
Yeah.
Intact.
And that one's intact. Actually, no, it's not the first. Well, it's the first one that they actually visited for a while in modern day.
Yeah. I mean, there were scenes in the chase.
Yeah.
There were scenes in the chase, and some would argue that Planet of the Giants takes place in the present day too.
That's a possibility as well. Yes.
But the only ones where they're fully interactive with present day for like the entire serial, what we would consider to be a modern present day story. That would be the first actual instance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd do it again in the 10th Planet, even though that was the far off future of 1986.
This is a computer.
And look at that British space program. Wow, we're Britain, the dominant power in space.
Yes. That's a nice thought.
Okay, so Thomas didn't have anything to say because didn't watch it. Bill thought Vicky's plot was fairly interesting. I partially disagree, and I will talk about that next. Well, after this.
I kind of agree. I do like it.
She has a bit of a plot, but I agree with Randy. I have some grievances with it, but at least there's a plot.
It's nice to see how different she is from when we first see her.
Mm-hmm.
As we see her now, when we first saw her, she was very kind of childlike and dependent on everyone. Here, she's kind of acting on her own, like, a lot. And learning to, like, defend herself and just kind of being her own person. She's grown from a child to a young woman. Even though she hasn't really aged all that much, she's kind of matured.
Yeah, but I had some issues with how they wrote that. But like I said, I'll talk about that on the dislike.
Speaking of which, it is time to start the dislikes, so I believe it's Aaron
No,
first?
it's not, because it's my turn.
Oh, like, it's your turn. I'm sorry.
I kept trying to get to it,
do
but
something.
I kept waiting, but every time I was interrupted. So sit down and shut up,
Well, then get on with it.
as my bus driver used to say. All right. So what I really liked about this episode was, basically, you don't get to see the pure historical anymore. And it was good to see that from this add of, hey, look, we're also adding and subtracting somebody, dealing with that in a pure historical format. And I thought it was good. It felt good. Most of the episode was fairly well paced for a historical, which, tended to wind up being 8 parts quite a bit. So they managed to do this in 4. What was Marco Polo, like 9? Something like that.
Something like 8 or 9. Yeah, it was ridiculously long. I'm surprised my younger self was able to sit through it.
So it didn't feel at all like it was dragging its feet. In a historical, it felt good. Everything seemed to work there. That's what I liked about it. Okay, dislikes. Aaron, you're up.
I didn't like Steven's plot of basically just borrowing a Greek uniform and walking out. I thought it was kind of a little boring and meh.
Not to mention a good way to die.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if he had snuck out and then maybe knocked out a random Trojan and stolen his uniform and snuck in.
That'd be far cleverer, yeah.
Cliche.
Yeah, it was.
It's basically how Vicki told him he should have done it. You should have shown up in a Trojan uniform. We wouldn't have gotten caught. Is what she tells him.
Yeah, it's the first companion of, hey, I'm gonna go get captured.
Yeah, like getting captured right away. So. Yeah.
I mean, if they needed him in prison, that's fine. Have him show up in the Trojan uniform, and then somebody realize he's an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
That would have worked.
That would have worked, but instead he did just have him just ham-fist his way in.
Run out as a Greek. Yeah, it's a good way to die. It is.
Really good way.
It would have just been, like, writing-wise, it would have just been much more exciting to read about.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you've got the Doctor kind of debating with Odysseus and everyone, about what to do about Troy, and you've got Vicki kind of sitting around with Priam trying to stall Priam, and Cassandra, of course, making her threats and whatnot. This is an actual bit of action other than the sword fighting that you get to see. So, or it would have been anyway.
And meanwhile, Steven is just sitting in a cell wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Matt, how about you? What did you dislike?
What did I dislike? Obviously, I'm not going to pick on the visuals because that'd be too easy of a target because there's so little of this poor episode that's left. It's mostly recreation stuff done by fans, as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm. Would love to see this one get animated love.
Oh,
really.
oh yes, some animation love on this story would be amazing. Would love to see what this was supposed to look like a little bit more accurately.
Seriously, if you guys can animate Power, you can animate this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will pay good money for that. I haven't even watched Power of the Daleks yet, and I have it.
Don't make offers you can't back, Matt.
What? I said I'd pay money to see it.
See it, all right. So if they do,
and I have
means
Power
you'll
of the
buy
Daleks.
DVD.
I paid money so I could see it. I haven't had time to sit down with it.
Okay, I thought you
Anyway.
said I'd pay money to have it done, and I'm like, whoa.
No. Pay money so I could see it. Anyway, overall thing I didn't like. I have to say I don't like the Doctor in this story. He does a lot of really silly and stupid things that just get them deeper and deeper into trouble.
Yeah, it was almost like a backstep in his character.
Yeah, all of a sudden he becomes curmudgeon-y again. He's becoming super. I'm the perfect. Yes, I'm freaking Zeus. Yeah. Look at me.
He basically outsmarted himself.
Outsmarted himself into his own trap.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, Doctor. 0 out of 10 stars.
Mind you, I can see where he was coming from. He's like, yes, I'll convince him I'm Zeus really quick, pop back in the TARDIS, and we'll just leave. Thing is, he could never they wouldn't let him go back into the TARDIS.
That's because he wanted to back into the TARDIS too much, and that was an obvious red flare for them. Obvious red flag, rather, for them. That's just... Yeah, the Doctor bit off more than he could chew, and he stupidly stepped into it. And he should have realized that from the get-go. Matter of fact, as soon as he stepped out and they started calling him Zeus, he should immediately just went, nope, and walked back in. Would have been the smartest move he made all episode. Anyways, I guess I'm done.
Alright. Tim, how about you?
I thought it was kind of disappointing, the character arc of the Cyclops.
Oh.
It's like, they could have set him up as this, intriguing storyline, and then they just sort of kill him off unceremoniously, without fanfare.
Like, super unceremoniously. They're just like, I wonder what happened to the Cyclops guy. Immediately, jarringly go over to him getting murdered in a field and jump right back.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess we'll never know.
I wonder if they had more planned and then just cut it for a bit. Or if he was in the background in a lot of stuff that we didn't see because, of course, no visuals.
Yeah, that's a possibility, too. We would have to see what the notes would be like. We'd have to actually see it animated.
And the worst part is that ultimately his death did not hinder their the Doctor and Companions' efforts anyway. So
yeah, he was a pointless linchpin at that point anyway. So to just kill him was like a waste of the actor and the waste and just a nugget wasted of time.
Yeah, it was. I think it was an idea they had that didn't go anywhere, but yeah. All right, was that Tim's? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Tim.
So going to Bill's. Bill didn't like Steven's blundering around like he's Jamie. They already forgot he was an astronaut for the future, and that kind of feeds into what Aaron said about the whole, yeah, I'll pretend to be a Greek soldier. Yeah, he didn't use smarts.
No, he went at this all dumb.
So what I didn't like is I did not like the way they wrote out Vicki, because it's like, let's basically do Susan's entrance or Susan's exit, only let's basically horn it into the last episode and a half.
And only just to reveal it to the Doctor in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. It felt really kind of rapid, shoehorned in, and looking back on it, there were a lot of companion exits in Doctor Who where it was just like they wrote it in at the last minute. Susan's is probably one of the best companion exits there is, because you can see that happening over the course of 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, they ham it in. I mean, she's basically taken captive by this family, develops Stockholm syndrome, and decides she's fallen in love with the guy and decides to stay in a era, 5,000 years before she was born?
Mm-hmm, something like that.
I mean, that's kind of a big step. And it really didn't felt like she had actually weighed the fact that she's going to be stuck in an era before there's freaking medicine.
Before medicine, before electricity.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just seemed to me that was a very sudden and not very well planned moment.
Before Amazon Prime.
Well, we might be living in an era after Amazon Prime, but that's what our president wants anyway.
Before there was corner stores.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we disliked about it. Now we're going to move on to your favorite scene. And Aaron, that's you.
Okay, so I liked. Let me see here. I had a few of them written down. Okay. I actually. I'm going to say that I like the scene where Vicki is trying to stall Priam, because it kind of shows that she's able of taking care of herself. Basically, she doesn't need the doctor there to hold her hand like in the first episode we saw her in. He's basically trying King Priam is trying to get information out of her. Trying to figure out how the war ends, because he believes her that she's from the future and everything, and she's like, well, I just got myself into trouble here by admitting that I'm from the future, and now they're going to try to drill me for information. So now she has to think up a way of keeping him from getting that information. So, and I thought that was kind of, it's a small scene, and it's not very complex, but she just keeps changing the subject on him. Like he'll be like, okay, how does this war end? She's like, well, how about your family? How's everyone doing? And he's like, stop changing the subject, god damn it. He knows what she's doing, but she still succeeds in doing it, at least for some time anyway. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty good.
All right. And Matt, I think? Yes.
On to me, favorite scene. Ugh. It's not that I absolutely hate this story, but it's kind of hard to pick one. I guess I will go with I liked the it's not Priam, it's his son. When he goes out and fights Achilles.
Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he accidentally ends up out there, and I mean, it's a complete and total accident. He's actually looking for Stephen underneath a different name, and he accidentally crosses paths with Achilles, and I believe during the battle, didn't one of them trip?
Yeah, Achilles tripped.
Achilles tripped, and then I guess
that's the origin of the phrase Achilles heel.
And yeah, that gave the other one the upper hand, and the prince the upper hand, and he was able to take him. Because this veteran warrior screwed up and got tangled and fell over.
Yeah, just a twist of fate.
Mm-hmm. And even though he's injured by Achilles, he still manages to survive, and he'll later meet up with Vicki, and they'll run off together.
Mm-hmm.
It was just nice. It was just like that alone was a kind of an interesting twist, even though we didn't get to actually see the combat. I would have loved to have seen that.
All right. So Tim, how about you?
I love the scene where the doctor shows the Trojan, not the Greeks, the plans for the Trojan horse, and the reactions range from confusion to "you've got to be kidding me" to "oh, all right," like especially Menelaus.
Everything from "you gotta be kidding me, this is never gonna work" to "oh my god, this is the best idea ever."
Yeah, it's like to Menelaus is like the horse is 40 feet tall. Horses don't grow that tall, do they?
I don't know, do they?
It's like, here, Menelaus, here's a shiny rubber ball. Go play in the corner.
Okay, so Bill, by the way, thought the best scene, as opposed to Matt's thought, that the doctor's ego not letting him say a god, that he's not a god until it was too late. Bill liked that, as opposed to Matt, who hated it.
No, I absolutely despised it. I found it to be a break in character. But to each their own.
Mm-hmm. It definitely would be a break of character today.
Mm-hmm. The doctor has learned that lesson harshly.
My favorite scene, I'm actually going to pick two here. The first one, and this was the one I had planned to go with, was the doctor writing up the plans for gliders, and then realizing later that, oh no, this would be very bad, and just abruptly say, oh, I made a mistake and it didn't work, and we'll go with this horse thing instead.
Because, yeah, that would have broken history and moved things way too soon.
Yeah, that would have had Romans with biplanes.
That'd be bad.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the worst idea ever. The doctor almost foobarred harder than ever.
Yep. Yeah, could you imagine the Romans invading with World War I style planes?
Just about World War I, yeah.
And the Crusaders would have been crusading across the galaxy. Okay. So...
we'd be a part of the Holy Roman Earth.
But Tim's reference made me think of the other half of the equation. And that was the Trojans upon seeing the horse. The whole thing is, oh my god, I think we found the god of age, you know. I'm just like, oh my god, they're falling for it, you know.
Well, that's because
they had to fall for it. It's history, but still, watching it happen was just kind of like,
It's essentially the same effect as a British person falling for a bulldog. They can't say no. It's in our biology.
It's like, what if someone could have said, "Hey, someone carved this big horse out of wood." It's like, no, this is not a. No human could do this. It's like, yeah, we could. Like, we built a city. No, it's like.
They built this city.
God damn it! I was trying not to.
It's like, this is the work of divine hands. Only the gods from Olympus could have sculpted such a beautiful creature.
Made out of toothpicks.
And then they get it up close. It's like, it's a bit cruder than I thought it would be. All right.
But still effective.
All right. So now we go to least favorite scenes. And Aaron, you're up.
And I have a kind of a specific one. And that's the one where they talk about the paper being folded into a plane like thing. Which, to be honest, would not have been paper. Parchment, they called it. It would have been papyrus, and probably the school kids wouldn't be using papyrus. They'd be using wax tablets and or a slate to draw on, which could easily be erased then. So he's talking about how this rare material, well, fairly rare material. It's not super rare, but
it's abused and abused by his kids. Yeah, boom.
Yeah, it's logic
thrown out window.
So it came off as kind of an anachronism because, kids in the 50s and 60s would fold up paper and throw it at their teachers and stuff. That's your typical kind of Dennis the Menace type silliness that happens. So that like I said, it came off as an anachronism to me. So.
Yeah, hon, I'm now imagining Stephen Hawking hitting you with his wheelchair and screaming at you for being pedantic.
You're being too pedantic. You're being too pedantic.
I'm just trying to get my point across, and sometimes you have to repeat yourself in order to do that.
That's not what pedantic means. It means nitpicky.
No, it's not That's not nitpicky.
That's actually, yeah, that's not nitpicky. That's literally failing at history.
That's literally failing at what it says that it's doing. It says that. It says that. Yeah.
It's a huge plot hole.
Mm-hmm. Because he spends so much time trying to think. It's the
trying to get through it. Yeah.
To think up the flying machine. And then he dumps the flying machine for the Trojan horse. It comes off. It makes that entire plot point between him and Odysseus seem like filler for the episodes, for the whole storyline.
It was.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was about to lean closer. You want to know what? It was.
Yeah. They should have just dressed Steven up in Trojan and have him sneak around the base and everything. That would have been
better filler.
better filler. Anyway, yeah. And every once in a while, cut away to the doctor. But it seemed like they spent an awful long time, with the doctor focusing on this flying machine inspired by an object that should not have existed.
Mm-hmm.
Booyah! And Matt backs me up.
Yes, I totally agree with this. It's silly. Because actually, I do recall that part of history.
I actually looked it up. I looked it up, the history of paper on Wikipedia.
I knew it. It was like in the back of my head, but I didn't think about it while watching. But now that you brought it up, it's like, oh shit, that's right.
There was something about it that just didn't seem right about it, so I was like, okay, it's
right. Yeah, paper wasn't that common. No, this is stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, isn't paper supposed to be kind of rare in this area?
Anyway, I believe it's down to me now.
Yep.
Yeah, we're running in circle again, so it's like move on. So scene I didn't like. Again, another break for the Doctor's character. He's suddenly just like overly antsy and wants to suddenly get out of the Trojan as they're moving. Like even before they start moving, he just suddenly wants nothing to do with this and wants to constantly get out. And it's just like, what do you think is going to happen now that you're in here, you idiot? You literally try to get out of here, they'll make sure that you die getting out of here. Don't be a fool.
It's like suddenly it's like, I'm claustrophobic. Since when?
Since right now. Ah! The walls. And then Odysseus just gags him and ties him up in a corner just to shut him up.
Well, yeah, because he starts bellowing. Because he has that voice when he's doing one of his speeches where he gets this bellowy point. The first Doctor, anyway.
Yeah, and I wouldn't blame Odysseus for doing that at that point because it's like,
yeah,
shut up, you idiot! They're moving us. It almost came to that point. Matter of fact, the Doctor was threatening to leave even while everyone was literally looking at the giant horse statue. And Odysseus is like, yeah, you try opening that hatch, you're not getting the rope. You take a nice long step down.
You go down
good luck.
Way. The easy way.
We're gonna find out if you can turn yourself into a paper bird real fast.
All right. Tim, how about you?
I just had a real facepalm moment when it seems that Vicki has talked her way out of trouble with the royal family, and then Stephen shows up and says, "Vicki, Stephen!" It's like they give each other away. It's like
well, part of that was the left hand not knowing what the right hand was doing. But at the same time, her blurting out Stephen was kind of like, yeah, not the bright move there.
Yeah, like to quote Glengarry Glen Ross, you never open your mouth unless you know what the shot is. So
yeah, it was just one of those things where she spoke before she thought, and they were trying to make her quick-witted, and that kind of went against that.
Snafu.
Yeah. I made a stoopy, yeah. Alright, so, no Thomas, and Bill's worst was Katarina going on the TARDIS because poor planning. I don't know, that was also kind of a shoehorny, here's a new companion for you.
Yeah, but they're instantly shoehorning her in, bye.
Here's this handmaid that you've only just seen up until now.
Mm-hmm. You've never met her before, but here, put her on the TARDIS.
She's maybe been around for in the background in half an episode, and she's been in the foreground for another half an episode. Bye.
Yeah, and she doesn't say much. She really doesn't. She's paper flat. I was hoping that they would have more on Katarina.
Before inviting her in, yeah, no, she just gets shoved in.
But no, I don't think they plan to. I think because apparently while this was going on, I think there was a production staff change, or she had announced
actually right before
during
this episode was a huge production staff change, and so when the option to renew the license to keep Vicki on was up, they just went, yeah, let's not. So the Mythmakers was literally her last episode.
But it was not written as being her last episode.
Not originally,
and
probably.
They had to pretty much pencil it in.
And then they shoved in this Roman girl without thinking about the fact that, oh, this is a Roman girl. Oh no.
Yeah, wow.
She's not Roman, she's Trojan.
Well,
she's older, more ancient than the Romans. Which means, like they said, they didn't know how to write for a character who didn't even know how a lock worked. Because locks weren't... I think maybe locks may have been invented, but they weren't widely used in Greece.
They were invented, but yeah, they weren't widely used because they were expensive. They were crude and they were expensive.
Yeah. Made out of wood, I think, for most part.
No, there were some metal casted locks back then. But like I said, they were expensive and really only used by the merchant class. Because the nobility didn't use them because you had guards. And when I mean merchants, I mean, like moneylenders and the like.
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, she was the Trojans were technically Greeks.
They were Greek era. They were not Greeks. They were the Greeks' regular enemies for many generations. So if you had mentioned to a Troyish person, yeah, you're Greeks, they would have spit on you and called you a lot of really bad names.
Oh, supposedly also a number of Trojans escaped and later would help develop Rome. So
yeah.
Isn't Troy on like Asia Minor?
Troy supposedly was somewhere around where Turkey is now, but that's
Asia
iffy.
Minor, but yeah, it's on the west coast. No, they found it. They found Troy.
They found something that looks like it could have been, but they're not sure.
They're fairly certain, Matt.
I literally just saw the video today from the stuff we had here, but anyway.
Yes, I know, but
it's also probably old, so they might have actually found more.
I mean, they're not going to find a big blinking neon sign that says "This is Troy." Visitors welcome. Check the little shop.
Well, I don't expect them to. The thing is that they were the video made it very clear that they were highly unsure at the time.
Yeah, they're more certain now, but at the same time, there's always a degree of guesswork in archaeology because it's all based on assumption. It's why the doctor says he laughs at archaeologists, because they have to guess. He goes and finds out.
We all know what happens when you make an assumption. You make an ass out of you. An umption.
Okay, so whose least favorite scene were we at?
I believe that was mine that was done, and I think that was Tim's, wasn't it?
Yep.
All right. So it's up to Bill's. Bill's least favorite. Oh wait, no, we did Bill's least favorite scene. That was the Katarina going on the TARDIS. Okay.
Oh
so
yeah, actually, we did finish Bill. So it's down to you.
All right. So my least favorite scene is the battle, quote unquote, between Stephen and what was his name, Paris.
Oh yeah, Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, because I
surrender.
Are you sure you surrender? I mean, that's just not done. Yeah, it was literally Paris was way too British. In that, oh, that's not cricket kind of British. And it absolutely infuriated me. Are you sure you surrender? Are you sure you don't want to die? Are you sure you don't want cake before death? It was
How about some crumpets?
It was just absolutely. It drove me insane. And he wasn't the only one in the serial that had that way too British mentality. I'm like, oh, but he was by far the worst offender. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, dude, you're playing a Trojan. Can you act a little bit like you're playing a Trojan?
That's the question, though. How do you act like a group of people that's no longer around, like, remotely?
By basically playing a classical era warrior.
I suppose, yeah. Try to go with old schooly warrior type, but that was also the other thing about the character. He was definitely not that.
Yeah, I know, but you can also do that same era kind of semi-nobility feel. I mean, everyone else managed to pull it off better, but he just sounded way too. Whoa, that's decent of you, man. You know, it was just. Yeah, it was just absolutely making me twitch.
He was on the verge of using modernisms, and it would make you fidget harder.
Yes. I mean, the only thing would have been worse is if the role of Paris was played by the Gumby family.
Are you sure you want to be taken captive?
You? Yeah, exactly.
Are you sure you wouldn't rather die?
Yeah.
My brain hurts.
We could kill you a little bit.
Just a little, yes.
Alright, yeah,
Anyway.
It's that whole scene, and then he just starts sitting there and just starts, kissing his ass, and I'm like, oh god.
Yes, I am a very popular warrior.
Yeah, it was just, I was like, no, I hate this, go away.
So dumb. So dumb.
Yeah.
This is why the Trojans lost, because they were stupid.
Alright, so that's our likes, our dislikes, our favorites, and our least favorites. So, final thoughts. Aaron.
I actually really enjoyed this one. It wasn't quite as slow going as some of them. In fact, it wasn't as slow going as some of the Patrick Troughton ones that I've seen while doing the podcast. There's been a few, like sometimes the invasion can kind of slow down a little bit and whatnot, but yeah, I think this is the first historical I've sat through.
Well, hope you enjoyed it, because
I think
this
so.
isn't going to be the last.
Well, it was interesting and I enjoyed it. So, and it was good to finally see it, because it's a big thing, because it's Vicky's departure, it's Katarina's jumping on point, and then what is it? The Katarina dies in the next story arc, doesn't she? Isn't it the Dalek Master Plan right after this?
No, we already did the Dalek Master Plan. So
I know,
that's
but
not really a spoiler.
Chronologically, storyline speaking.
Yeah, I know, that was to Tim. It's not really a spoiler if we've already reviewed it. But yeah, this literally is right before Dalek Master Plan, so she dies, I think, like in the second or third episode of that serial.
I think it was like right at the cliffhanger of the first and the start of the second. She just gets shot out of an airlock to stop the pirates or something, I think, to that effect.
Which, actually this was a lot less boring than the Dalek's Master Plan, which is a whole lot of traveling back and forth.
That should tell you a lot about the Dalek Master Plan right there.
Hey, I mean, you want to find our podcast on it? We did it, a couple of years ago?
At least.
Yeah. I think
Unearthly Podcast, Dalek Master Plan, and listen to our boredom.
Yep.
I mind Dalek Master Plan so much. It is a lot to get through, though.
Yeah, it's a lot to get through, and with a whole subplot thrown in for no reason. All right, Matt, your thoughts.
My thoughts. For what this is, which is a half-gun episode, we have no visuals outside of a few tiny clips and whatever the fans were able to put together for us to watch to help alleviate the boredom. We got a decently retold, I should say, perspective on what happened at the Battle of Troy for the last remaining days. The main Doctor Who cast did a perfectly fine job for the most part, although I will say that they were badly written in areas. But the cast themselves did the best they could with what they were given. And at the very least, there was some historical accuracy with how things ended, at least. and it's kind of sad that they kind of shoehorned in the coming and going of two notable characters in one episode so quickly and so suddenly, but I guess you can't really fight how things happen. Productions like this have always been kind of chaotic for Doctor Who once in a while.
All right. That everything you have to say?
Other than that, I really do highly wish that this was one that's been either reenacted or been animated by this point, because I would like to see some of this a lot more clearly.
All right. Tim?
I got the impression that this was especially tragic that we only have a telesnap of this episode because, like, from what I got from the dialogue and like sort of the descriptions of what was going on, this could have been a very impressive episode, visually speaking. Another thing I got from this was the episode where it sort of clicked for me is that one of the things they like to do with the first Doctor is like set him up just to like knock him down a peg, or like have a thing where he's so smug and he thinks he's in the bag, only to be met with an unforeseen complication. Like he thinks, I know, I just have to say, oh, this guy, I have to sacrifice this guy in my temple. And is like, okay, you just go in the TARDIS and fly away. Complication, the TARDIS is no longer there. That's a moment that I've begun to associate with William Hartnell more than any other Doctor. And this was the episode that sort of like crystallized that for me.
Okay.
Other things about this episode is like, again, I really liked how it played with people's knowledge of these classical characters and sort of flipped them on their head. But that's all I have to say.
All right. So Bill thought the story is pretty okay. It didn't blow him away, but it was pretty interesting, and he liked the Greek mythology. It seemed like they were going for realism for a brief second, but this is definitely more of a sensationalized historical than an educational one. He had a feeling Vicky's plot was going to go the way it did from the dialogue, and that was a bit disappointing so soon after Susan getting the same sort of ending. It's kind of what I had mentioned there, but yeah. All right, so my thoughts of it is, from a production standpoint, BBC has always kind of known how to do historicals. And that was notwithstanding with Doctor Who. They had a great visual set, great costumes, and everything. Unfortunately, all of that is currently lost. Due to, of course, the missing episode thing. So all we're really left with is dialogue, writing. We really can't even tell on direction. And the writing, I was going to give this more of a pass until we started discussing it. And then you brought up how many holes there were in it, and that actually kind of hurt it for me. So the writing is now kind of on my subpar list. The acting, however, by the main cast is fine, but the follow-up cast kind of hurt. And I can't tell if that's what the director was going for or if it was just the actor's thing or what. But some of it is pretty annoying. So, I'm thinking I'm not as fond of this as I was going into it. So, ratings. Aaron, you're first.
I liked it well enough. I'm going to go ahead and see 3.5.
All right. Matt?
That's I'm trying to bait and it's right around that area too. I would love to give it a 4, but yeah, there's just too much wrong with some of the character depictions that I have to give it a 3.5. Well, if we get some good visuals, that might get bumped up retrospectively, but until then, yeah, 3.5 on this one. You need to do some saving work on this.
All right. Tim?
I'll go with the train and say 3.5.
All right, so... Yeah, it is a train, because Bill gave it the same thing.
Wow.
3.5. Tim gives it a 3.5. Oops. Tim cannot give it a 3.6. Bill gives it a 3.5. And I, unfortunately, am going... Oh, I have to X out Thomas, because he's not here. I am going to break with the train, and I'm going to give it a 3.0.
Ouch.
I was going to give it a 3.5 going into this, but you mentioned so many things that were wrong with the plot line that I just can't give it that in good measure, because I deducted an entire point for the lack of visuals. So it would have been a 4.5 with visuals, and it's now down to a 4. So that gives it a 3.0 for me, averaging 3.4 from all of us. And that will put it...
just above mediocre.
Let's see where it puts us. Let's see. 3.4 will put it way below mediocre on us. The Mythmakers is 169 out of 241.
Oof.
Yeah, it is on par with The Five Doctors, Bloodless Soldier, Doctor Who and the Daleks, that's the movie, Terra Firma, Trail of the White Worm, The Obsidian Adventure, Androids of Terra, Curse of Peladon, Silver Nemesis, Night of the Whisper. It is better than Vengeance of the Stones, Planet of the Daleks, In the Forest of the Night, Evil of the Daleks, a lot of another Telesnap one there. Class, For Tonight We Might Die, Modern Undead, The Stones of Blood, and it is worse than Big Finish Jubilee, Planet of the Dead, Eaters of Light, City of Death, Death's Deal, The Time Machine, Similarity Engine, The Christmas Invasion, Twice Upon a Time. Wow, I didn't realize that was that far down. Nobel of a Devil, etc. There's a lot of 3.5s. So there you go. Coming in at 169 out of 241 reviewed. That's all we have to say about the Mythmakers. All right, Matt, could you do the outro piece? Because
Yep.
I don't have that information anymore.
Yep, barely treading wire this one. Although in the listing we don't have enough really bad basement dwellers yet. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. If you want to follow us elsewhere, you can find the VODs for this episode and others on YouTube at Unearthly Podcast. You can follow our Twitch at Unearthly Podcast. Twitter, our Unearthly Pod, Facebook, Unearthly Podcast, and if you really like our show and want to help out by throwing us a bone or two, you can also head over to Patreon at an Unearthly Podcast.
All right. So next week, well, we end this historical outro and intro and move on to another. We lose Katarina and the Daleks' master plan, but Stephen goes on to The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. Written by John Lucarati and Donald Tosh, and starring William Hartnell as the Doctor, Peter Purvis as Stephen Taylor, and introducing Jackie Lane as Dorothea Dodo Chaplet. And that's coming at you next week.
Dun dun dun.
The Doctor goes back to the French Revolution.
See you all next time.
Bye-bye.